Welcome to Creativity Cooks. Today we are making an Among Us cake. For those of you that aren't familiar with Among Us, it's a video game that is online for kids, and we thought that we'd challenge you today to make a cake that looks like one of the characters from the video game. So to make this recipe, you will need the following ingredients: 3/4 cups of flour, half a cup of sugar, 3/4 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/4 cup of butter, 1/4 cup of milk, 1 egg, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. We will be making a separate frosting for this recipe, and those ingredients we added separately towards the mid to the end of this video. Awesome, so let's begin. Step 1. Preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Step 2. This is a good prep step. We will need to add some baking spray, some margarine, or some butter to the baking pan that you are using for this recipe. Now, I am starting out with my baking spray that's just not working so well. I'm just not having a very good cooking day today. All my tools are not coming together. But definitely start with some baking spray or some butter. And you can use a little piece of a paper towel if you're not getting enough of it out to spray your pan. And just use that paper towel and spread it all around into your baking pan. You want to make sure that you get all the bottoms and the sides of this baking pan so that once you put your mixture and your batter in here, it is not going to be sticking to this pan and you can easily remove it. So once you have your baking pan all basted and set aside, we're going to start by mixing our dry ingredients. So in a medium bowl, we're going to add and mix our flour, our sugar, and our baking powder. If you have the Creativity Cooks meal kit, your sugar and baking powder were mixed together as one package. So once you've added them to your flour, use a mixing spoon and mix the contents of your dry ingredients up very, very well. Once you have finished mixing your dry ingredients, you should not be able to tell which is flour, which is sugar, which is baking powder. It should be one harmonious mixture. And once you're finished that, you can go ahead and set it aside, and we're going to start with our wet ingredients. So as a prep step, our butter needs to be softened. You can add it to the microwave for about 10 to 15 seconds. You don't want it to have it too liquefied. We just want it nice and soft so we can work with it. And in a separate bowl now, we've added our butter. We are going to need to add our egg. We are going to need to add our milk. And we are going to need to add our vanilla extract. If your milk is cold, you will notice that once you add it to the butter, it's going to start making it clump up a little bit just because the milk is cold. It's cooling the butter down. It's bringing it back to a solid state. Don't worry about that too much. Just use your mixing spoon, and as you add each ingredient into this bowl, as you can see, I just added my egg. I'm just mixing and mixing and mixing this up as much as possible. Those butter chunks, again, they will start to get a little hardened or more in a solid state from anything cool that you add to this bowl, being a cold milk or cold eggs. It doesn't matter. It does look a little bit clumpy, but do not worry about it. You just want to use your mixing spoon or a whisk if you have one, and just continue mixing this very, very well. Now, once your wet ingredients are mixed, we are going to add them to the dry ingredients from step 3 that we've already mixed. So we are going to pour it into the bowl with the flour and the sugar and the baking powder, and we are going to use our mixing spoon and mix this up really, really well. Normally, I would speed up this video to show you just how I would just say mix it. But sometimes I'm finding that some of you are just not mixing these as well as you should be because you're trying to do it as fast as I am in my video. So I'm going to let this play for just the real time. I've mixed this for a good 2.5 minutes. So I do want you guys to do the same, to take your time and just continue to mix this as best as you can. Also, use your mixing spoon if there are any of the dry mixture that's caked onto the side of your bowl. As you're mixing it, just gently scrape it off and add it right back into your mixture. And you can also see that any of that butter that was in a solid state, it should start to melt out. You should start to have a pretty viscous mixture, but it should not be too liquefied. And all of those dry ingredients should not be clumped on to the side of your bowl as you're mixing. So I'm just going to continue playing this video. I will stop talking, and I just want you guys to just continue to mix this until you have a really nice smooth mixture. Okay, awesome. That was amazing mixing. So once you have finished mixing your batter, you want to add the complete mixture into the baking pan that you basted in step number 2. And I'm pouring mine in. I'm just going to give it just a couple of seconds so it just smooths out and smooths itself out. And if you have any of this mixture left in your mixing bowl, use a spatula or use a mixing spoon and just go ahead and scrape it out so all of your cake batter gets into your baking pan and ready for baking. And like I said, once you've added all of it, I would let it sit on the counter for about 1 to 2 minutes so it basically levels itself out. It's kind of a thick, viscous mixture. It will work its way around the pan, but do not put it into your oven until you have all of this cake leveled out, just like how mine is here. I'm just using my hands to just kind of work it around a little bit, and I'm just going to set it down and let it sit till it is about one level, and then I will get it ready to put in my oven and bake this for about 30 to 35 minutes. So one of the things I've also noticed when baking is that all of our ovens are a little bit different. So once you have baked your cake for about 35 minutes or so, go ahead and test it. I'm putting a bamboo skewer into my cake, and it's a little tricky to see right now, but I got a lot of stuff that came out with it, which is telling me that my cake is not quite ready, even though it's been in the oven for so long. Here, I tried another section of it. I got a larger wet chunk of it. So I'm going to put this back in the oven for about another 10 minutes. And once I take it out again, if you can see right there, see, it's nice and dry. That is what your cake should look like. So whenever you're baking, whether you're baking with me or you're baking with anyone else, once you have baked a cake or something in the oven, always check it to see if it is ready. And if it's not, you can put it back in the oven for a few more minutes until it's fully baked. So while my cake is cooling, I'm going to go ahead and make my frosting. To make this frosting, you will need a quarter cup of butter, 1.5 cups of confectioner's sugar, 1.5 tablespoons of milk, and 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. You will also need some food coloring, and you can use any food coloring you like. To begin our frosting, you will need some melted butter, And to melt this butter, you can put it in the microwave for about 10 to 15 seconds. You want it softened, but you don't want it too liquefied. I kind of made mine a little bit too liquefied, but because I left it in the microwave for a little bit longer than 10 seconds. But definitely 10 to 15 seconds is a good time period, and you should have this still softened, but not too liquid. Next, we are going to add our milk to this bowl, and we're also going to add our vanilla extract. Use your mixing spoon at this point and mix these wet ingredients up really, really well. Once they are mixed, we are going to add our confectioner's sugar to this mixture. I'm starting off by adding just 1 cup of confectioner's sugar to my mixture because I want to make sure this is blended really well. And sometimes when you add too much confectioner's sugar at one time, it just makes it really difficult to mix. So I've added 1 cup of confectioner's sugar to my wet ingredients, and I'm using my mixing spoon to mix these together very, very well. Again, you're going to notice some of the sugar that is just getting stuck to the side of your bowl. You want to use your mixing spoon and you want to scrape that off as best as you can so that you have all of the sugar into this mixture as possible. And now I'm just going to go ahead and add the other 1/2 cup of sugar to this wet ingredients. Now, if you added all of your sugar at the same time, it's totally, totally okay. That is what we wrote in our recipe. But I'm just using this opportunity to show you guys just a different way of when you're adding ingredients. Sometimes you can follow the recipe, but after you've done something for a long time, you start finding those little tricks and tools that work for you. And as you guys continue to cook, I really want you to start developing some of your own techniques when you're cooking, and some of the things that may work for somebody else. That's great, but it's also good to find out the things that really work for you when you are making different recipes. And as you can see, I'm still mixing. And early on, when I added the 1st cup of confectioner's sugar, this mixture was very brown, but now it's starting to lighten up a little bit, and it's also starting to get a little bit more liquefied than when we first added the confectioner's sugar into this. So I'm going to go ahead and mix this for a few more seconds, and I think our mixture is really good. Now, use a small mixing bowl and a 1/4 cup measuring spoon. Okay, what we want to do is we want to remove about a 1/4 cup of this mixture so that we can keep it in the whiter stage for this icing. This white part of the mixture, we're going to use it to make the eye for our Among Us character. And the bigger mixture, we're going to add food coloring to it so that we can change the color of our frosting. But you definitely want to have some of this left over that is white. That will be a good contrast for your eye. And now, once you've removed that 1/4 cup of the mixture, we are going to add a little bit of food coloring to this recipe. Most of you, I know all of you received food coloring. However, you all received different colors. So some have blue, some have green, some have orange, some have red. These Among Us characters come in many of the primary and complementary colors. So whichever food dye that you received in your kit, you're more than welcome to use it. Or if you have another color at home that you'd prefer to use, you're more than welcome to use that as well. So we are going to make this frosting, and mine is blue. And I'm going to add a little bit more food coloring to it just to make it a little bit darker because I like dark blue. And I have my white frosting set aside. If this is really just too liquefied, you can add this to the fridge or to the freezer for about 10 to 15 minutes so that it gets a little bit harder. And once you have done that and your cake is cooled, you can go ahead and start adding this frosting to your Among Us cake so that you can make your recipe. So once your cake has finished baking and you removed it from the oven and it's cooled down, use a knife and cut out like a U shape from the bottom of your cake. This is going to be kind of like the legs of your Among Us character that you're adding the shaping into it. Normally, I'd say to set this aside, but this is a great opportunity to taste this cake without food coloring or frosting. And I just ate it and it tasted really good. Um, and also now we are going to use a spatula and our frosting, and we are going to add the frosting to this cake. My cake, I transferred it to a flat plate because it makes it a little bit easier to film, and I ended up cracking it. So don't mind the cracks in my character right now. I'm going to go ahead and remake this so I don't have a big crack going into it. But for the purpose of this video, let's just continue. And that's the thing with cooking sometimes. Things happen and you just have to figure out a way to fix it and keep on going. It's definitely a great problem solving skill. And it's even more important to know that if something doesn't work out the way that you plan for it to work out, to not quit, to just keep on going and keep on trying to make this. So my cake is cracked and I am adding some frosting to it. I'm going to add frosting all on top of this cake, and then that white the white frosting, I'm sorry, that I set aside earlier in this tutorial, I am going to use it as the eye for my Among Us character. So at this point on, I'm not going to show you guys too much more of what I did, but I am more interested in seeing what you guys have made. Please submit your pictures, submit your videos. We want to put these up online. We want to see what all these characters look like. I'm sure everyone's using different baking pans and different containers for this. This is a challenge month, and we are challenging you to just go ahead and finish the rest of this recipe. We want to see how awesome it is. We want to hear if it was tasty, how it went for you, if it was good. Did you nail it? Did you fail it? Did you create something new? Did you create something different? That is what cooking is all about, and we want you guys all to have so much fun with this. So this, I'm still working on my character who is broken. I will send another picture. I'll post it online when I finish this again. I'll get my kids to do it a little bit later on. But like I said, I am so much more interested to see what you guys have made. I want to see all of your characters. So please go ahead and email them to us, and let's see what you guys have done. Thank you so much for cooking with us, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you.